This is the KhoodeelaarTVChannel television channel being broadcast on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo Manifesto editions. This is part A and it is timed at 1500 hours GMT. The actual broadcast has started about 9 minutes before that. This is Saturday, the 29th of June 2024. Two women writers in the Times. One is Anne Treneman, a Canadian-born resident in the United Kingdom for quite a while, has been a columnist on the Times. And before her role as a columnist, she was a political sketch writer of the Times, which means she spent a lot of time observing members of parliament. And she got bored and fed up. And the other one is Caitlin Moran, who used to publish on Fridays in the Times second on Friday, the Times supplement, and her column is called Caitlin Moran's Celebrity Watch. This now publishes on Thursdays. And on Saturdays in the magazine, she has got a piece. This one is by far the most noticeable one because of the heading. Let's see what Caitlin Moran's heading says. I have read most of it in the last 1 hour on the bus. Caitlin Moran, all the prime ministers I have known. Well, that's a false heading. Caitlin Moran, election special, it says on page 6, where the actual article is starting to publish, and then it says, let's just say, my interactions with politicians have rarely ended well. And the editors of the Times magazine say our columnist up close with prime ministers and several wannabes. And what Caitlin Moran says about all the other people pale into insignificance when compared with what she says about David, sleazeball criminal Cameron. She doesn't call him sleazeball or criminal, but that's what he is. And she says that he is the one she calls the rudest one that she came across. Now, David Sleazeball Cameron is a racist, hater, inciter of hatred, etc., etc. Well, there is a highlight in the piece. I ended up running the last 700 meters to 10 Downing Street in heels, which deeply troubled my pelvic floor. Caitlin Moran as Margaret Thatcher, photographed by Jude Eddington. Well, she doesn't really look like Margaret Thatcher, especially because her frowning eyes look very dissimilar to Margaret Thatcher. And Caitlin Moran doesn't have the, how shall I say, the skin complexion to look like anything like Margaret Thatcher. Anyway, she praises the racist Gordon Brown. She doesn't call him racist, but I call him racist because that's what he is. Gordon Brown was polite despite the fact that she was too late in arriving. And about the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, she says, Starmer reminded me of my husband, a blinking stoicism in the face of me and my friends being hammered. Now there is a picture of Theresa May showing her breasts, and she says that she talked with Theresa May about Ocado until she realized too late that she had been mistaken, that she had mistaken Theresa May for Caitlin Moran's mate's mum, whatever that means. There's an in line which needs introduction. Unfortunately, she's talking about a party, and she's saying, unfortunately, everyone at the party except Starmer got so drunk, I can barely remember anything about it other than that A, the whole wizard thing absolutely didn't happen, and B, many of us, clearly political visionaries, repeatedly and firmly told Starmer that Jess Phillips was going to be the next Labour leader. That is talking about the time before Starmer became leader. It's obvious, while he smiled politely, my abiding impression of him was that he reminded me of my husband, manifesting a slightly blinking stoicism in the face of so many women being so hammered, with the reassuring undercurrent that, yes, he would drive us all home if we couldn't get an Uber, as long as we promised in advance to be sick out of the window. The one moment he really sprang into life conversationally was when the gossip turned to a prominent figure's recent drug problem. Eschewing everyone else's salacious tone, Starmer delivered a concise and informative primer on the difference between Class A and Class B drug possession in terms of sentencing, which was the only person able to talk about slurring or resting their head on the table and moaning, I'm so wasted. Finally, well, the last one is my favorite. In 2010, I attended the Glamour Magazine Awards, the much missed A-list lady booze up held in a tent in Berkeley Square in London. When I arrived, I realized that the invitation had bestowed upon me a great honor, perhaps the greatest honor of all, for the editor, Jo Elvin, had not only put me on her table but next to her silver-haired old mother. Jo must really trust me to be all things to all people chat-wise, I thought as I sat next to Ma Elvin, and I will not break that trust. Lady, prepare to enter a conversational Eden. I was all the more keen to put Jo's mum at ease because it was obvious she didn't usually come to this kind of event. While Cheryl Cole was dressed in a sexy silver nothing and Claudia Winkleman was in a cool tuxedo, Jo's mom was in a black strapless taffeta dress in which she looked profoundly uncomfortable and was carrying a massive handbag that looked like a patent leather haggis. I will be exquisitely kind to this lonely, jarringly dressed lady who knows no one else in the room, I thought nobly. Now, I don't mean to boast, but I'm usually rather good at general chat. I can riff on pretty much anything. However, after 20 minutes, I admit I was feeling somewhat dry. Fashion, music, literature, Joe's mom just wasn't biting. In the end, we found a fertile place conversationally. Whether there was one you really thought about it, any material difference between Ocado and Waitrose online, we gave that a solid 5 minutes before triumphantly concluding that no, there wasn't. Just when we were about to get into the nitty gritty of the obvious next step, one would Marks and Spencer food cave in to pressure and start home deliveries too. The awards host for the night, James Corden, took to the mic. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he said, scanning the audience, will you welcome to the stage to present the next award, Home Secretary Theresa May? At which point, Joe's mom stood up and walked to the stage. She wasn't Joe's mom at all. She was the Home Secretary Theresa May. So that's my roundup of prime ministers, past, potential, and only possible in alternative realities. To be honest, as I have been writing this, it's made me realize what a bloody awful job it is being a senior politician. Too many people know who you are, or in the case of Theresa May, don't. Perhaps are constantly being bitchy about your very pink face, or else they're watching you at parties to see if you get drunk. Now, what Caitlin Moran is obviously failing to understand is that these are human beings. The whole propaganda gloss that is put on politicians, especially those ones holding powerful positions, etc., are even more of a liability, each one. Now, back to Caitlin Moran's third paragraph before the last one. You, meanwhile, are watching yourself to avoid any jokes that make it look as if you fancy Bill Clinton, or else you are living with the knowledge that you can unthinkingly press send on the wrong tweet and end up at the mercy of millions. So as Thursday night turns into Friday morning, I'd like to hope we can all take a moment to feel compassion towards all those past and present, who throw their hat in the ring for one of the toughest jobs in the world. Let us for a brief minute feel a deep empathy and love for all our leaders, or at the very least, sing Sweet Caroline in a more poignant minor key, before using the recycling bin as a cattle drum and bashing it with sticks. Caitlin Moran has written this, and I have read all of it almost. Well, I've read the last bits now, but before starting it, I read most of it on the bus, but I think I've left about a few few paragraphs rather. The reason I'm referring to mentioning Caitlin Moran in the way without calling her names is that she has made the point about David Sleaze Cameron, which is actually factually true. He is rude. Not only was he rude to her, but he is completely a racist. And as I have broadcast and elsewhere on the social media posts, he insulted intentionally, deliberately insulted Jeremy Corbyn when he, Cameron, was in the post of Prime Minister and of the opposition, and the two faced one another at so-called passion times. And Cameron came across as a fisherman, as a thug, as a very lowly raised, backward son of a very depraved household. Now, about Anne Treneman, she is the opposite of David Cameron, let's say, because she has written in today's Times a piece about saying that she has just been to Paris and she found that everyone was nice, which she was impliedly contrasting with her all the previous trips she made to France, Paris. And she said that she is wondering whether everyone in France has been on a niceness drug, which we shall be finding out about maybe in due course another time, not today, not in today's edition. Now, the front page of the Daily Mail, Saturday, 29th of June 2024, is the banner heading, Ex-Prime Minister takes fight to Labour with rousing intervention. It's no rousing intervention at all. It's a fucking propaganda, typical Daily Mail propaganda for typical congenital liar Boris Johnson. And it says, Boris, Britain can still swerve Starmageddon. Starmageddon. Britain can still dodge a bullet and avert Starmageddon, Boris Johnson tells voters today. In an impassioned plea to stop the country lurching to a socialist supremacy, the former Prime Minister says it would be a huge mistake to let Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer into number 10. And it says, writing exclusively for the Daily Mail, fuck the Daily Mail. What else is he doing? Writing exclusively, fuck off. Writing exclusively for the Daily Mail, Mr. Johnson makes his biggest intervention in the campaign, fuck off, insisting that there is still time between now and polling day on Thursday for the nation to collectively come to our senses. He says nothing is certain, despite polls suggesting the Tories are on course for an electoral wipeout, giving Sir Keir a 200-seat supremacy, super majority. The predictions have brought Conservative warning of Labour being handed unfettered power, with the diminished Tory party unable to muster an effective opposition. Such a scenario would give Sir Keir a blank check to increase taxes, it is feared, in a bid to turn the tide and remind voters what is at stake. Mr. Johnson warns that Britain could be stuck with a left-wing socialist supremacy that lasts for a decade or longer or more. Fuck off. Starmer is not a socialist. He's more right-wing than the Conservatives. There is a piece against Starmer also in the Daily Mail by Andrew Bryloped-Neal. Now, this piece about the racist comment about Rishi Sunak is on page 7 of the Daily Mail. It says, Rishi, I'm hurt and angry that my daughters have to hear this reform racism. Now, this is about the Reform Party calling Rishi Sunak a Paki. Now, a Paki is, of course, created by anti-Muslim, anti-Pakistan kind of propaganda machine. Now, if Sunak were not so stupid, he would not say about his daughters. He would say how traumatizing it must be for hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis in the United Kingdom and elsewhere to be abused like that. The word Paki should be banned. That's what Rishi Sunak would have said if he had a brain. And Sicko Farage is nothing if he is not a conspiracy theorist. The shit has got a pattern. He says, first thing he says that he apologizes, then he denies, and the third point he makes on anything is that there must be a conspiracy by his enemies, political enemies, who must have set up the reform and broadcast this result on Channel 4 News. And Andrew Pierce says about David Lammy and Ed Miliband, where are Labour hiding gaffe-prone David Lammy and Ed Miliband? What Pierce is saying is that both Ed Miliband and David Lammy are unreliable speakers at public events because they are prone to make gaffes that are quite embarrassing political statements or gestures. Well, this is something that is part of the propaganda of the conspiracy. And about the American debate, the so-called presidential debate, the entire British press, of course, is concluded that Biden has lost the Democrats the election to Donald Trump. And this is the heading from Tom Leonard's piece, filing from New York. So can they topple Sleepy Joe? They say that Joe Biden can't even stay awake. And who should replace him? And then Freddie Gray, who is described as deputy editor of The Spectator, his piece about Biden is this: Biden's party has lied to the public and itself about him for too long. And there is the Daily Mail opinion headed, to all Tories we say, you have a right to be angry over your party's errors, but don't let anger blind you to the perils of Starmerism. Remember that they who pour out vengeance risk tasting a bitter drought. And the piece by Johnson is highlighted with these words. The nation doesn't really want Sakia or his tax-hiding, EU-loving, soft on the illegal migration agenda. Look at the list of hatred. There is still time for us to swerve from the cliff edge of Starmageddon. And Farage is being given another two-page spread. Tory voters hell-bent on hitting the bottle with Pied Piper of Clacton in the whole country socialist. They should prepare for one hell of a hangover. What they're saying is that they shouldn't vote for Farage, not because Farage is a racist, nasty, Nazi, but that Farage would be a vehicle to deprive the Conservatives of enough votes to stop the Labour Party from getting a supermajority. And Amanda Platal, who is one of the nastiest Australian racist liars, has got a piece against Julian Assange. That's the only piece in the Daily Mail. The Australian government has spent £500,000 flying Assange to Australia to Heroes Welcome. And she compares the reception the Australians are giving to Assange to the other criminal. Where shall I find him?